Yours is off? Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the post-lunch graveyard spot. You've done really well to get here. I think you've picked an excellent session to come and join. We've got an all-star, all-female lineup for this session. So, consumer insights, keeping the voice of the customer at clean cooking's core. We've got Shweta Sarin from Shell Foundation, Maureen Soto from Sequest Capital, Kat Harrison from 60 Decibels, Catherine Schroff, Mongalza Light, and Nina Mutulu from Constellation Design. And I'll ask each of them to say a little bit more about their organizations before we get into the questions. We've got hopefully a lot of time built in for some interaction with you all, so please do be thinking about questions. I'm hoping that we can get at least 20 minutes of Q&A from you with the panel. My name is Ronan Ferguson. I'm a senior manager at Clean Cooking Alliance in the market strengthening team, and CCA is really excited about this session right here, right now, for two reasons. One is that we are officially launching a report that 60 Decibels did for us on 12 of our venture catalyst portfolio companies, painstakingly surveying more than 3,000 customers to give us some insights to work on with our companies. Really, really interesting report, which is being launched today. I really, really urge you to take a look at some of the insights. The second reason that we're excited as CCA about today is that we're launching an initiative called the User Insight Lab. Now, the User Insight Lab has a central premise of moving from finding customers for our products to finding products for our customers, which is a big, big step change. There are three parts to the User Insight Lab, which are going to be used as a bit of a story arc for the people that our panel. So, the three pieces of the User Insight Lab is number one, it's possible to surface new insights on users, and it's desirable to do so. Now, Nina's going to be kind of taking on that block with some of her questions and answers. The second part of the arc of the User Insight Lab is that it's possible to embed customer insights in organizations and for them to act on them. And that's where we're going to spend a lot of time with Kat, with Catherine, with Maureen. And Shweta is going to close us out with the third part of the User Insight Lab, which is acting on user insights positively impacts the social and financial performance of organizations. So with that, let's get underway. And I'd like to start, Nina, with you, maybe in one out breath. Who is Constellation Design?
Hi, can you hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So Constellation Design is a human-centered design and strategy consultancy. And where our name comes from is the technique that we use is we bring in a constellation of experts at relevant points in the design journey. So the people on our teams range from medical doctors to interaction and product designers. And the thinking behind this is when you meld knowledge expertise with lived experience or consumer insights, then you can actually get to a 360 view of the problem and create impactful solutions.
That's great, thanks. Yeah, and sorry to pick on my audience. Claudia, could you hear that in the back okay? Yeah, great, thanks. All right, well, Nina, so two questions, double salvo. One, what is human-centered design and user-centricity? And two, what are some traditional methods and opportunities to do it differently in the development space?
Yeah, rapid fire. Okay, so I'd love to get a baseline from all of you first. How many of you have, by show of hands, have heard of human-centered design? All right, or design thinking, or user-centricity. There's a lot of different words for it. Okay, great. And how many of you would, could maybe like describe it to a friend as out-of-the-box thinking or creative problem solving? Ooh, okay. Wow, you guys are an educated bunch. That's usually the answer I get for human-centered design. Like, that's what it is. But really what it is it's a problem-solving technique that puts users at the center. And the thinking behind this is when you solve for user needs, you can create anything, like any kind of solution, a product, a service, a culture, you name it, and it'll be successful in market. So working in international development, I've kind of seen a couple ways human-centered design is practiced, and a couple myths around it. So I was going to spend some time just debunking those myths. So the first is the process itself. So many times human-centered design is talked about as out-of-the-box thinking, where you create bold, creative ideas. And just the sound of that sounds inherently risky. And what user-centered design is actually a way of de-risking your solutions before they get to market. And the way you do this is by getting customer feedback often and incorporating it in your iterations of products. So when us at Constellation Design, if we're creating a physical product of something, we'll start with a concept write-up. So just what is the idea, just in words.
Nina,
Then we'll,
could I just put you, just getting some feedback, just a little bit closer.
oh, sure. Is
Thank
that
you.
better? Okay. So when we do product development at Constellation Design, we have different stages of fidelity based on where we are before it goes to market. So first, we might start with a concept write-up, so it's just the idea. Then we get user feedback on it, iterate on it. Then we might move to an illustration. We'll put it in front of customers again, iterate on it. Then we'll move to a works-like prototype, or sorry, a 3D rendering, get feedback. Then we do a looks-like prototype, get feedback, until we get to a works-like prototype. And then you can probably guess what we do after that. We get feedback and we iterate on it. And this way you get, you kind of figure out all the watch-outs before you get to market. So that's kind of the different ways in which we test. The second myth is around research methods. So this is really where the fun and creativity comes in. So in international development, what I've seen a lot of is large-scale quantitative surveys and qualitative interviews to a lesser extent. But those are the two main research methods. But I believe if you're really going to get deep insights, you have to use a variety of methods. And when I say deep insights, I'm saying beyond demographic data and going into psychographic data. Like, what motivates your customers? What behaviors are they engaging in? What are their hopes and fears? Because when you can speak to your customers' core human needs and really like design around that, then that's a customer for life.
How do you do this? There's a lot of methods that we use. So there's, deep qualitative interviews, of course, but we also do observational research. So we might follow, just to see how people are interacting in a space, and this is really great for context building. The other thing we might do is go on tag-alongs or field trips. So we'll follow customers around for the day on their errands or when they go to work, all of those things. Or now in our digital world, we'll also do social listening. And that's when we're looking at conversations that are happening online. What are people discussing? What's getting a lot of traction? What's rising to the top? And basically in all these methods, what you're trying to do is immerse yourself in the
customer's life. And it's not just about their needs, but also just how they move through the world. We've done a lot of fun projects where, once we were living with a nomadic tribe in the deserts of Rajasthan to understand their embroidery and different ways of life. And that's a very intense one, but you can also be very scrappy with it, and you don't have to have a big budget. So, with Clean Cooking Alliance, we did some work in Haiti with Haitian street vendors, and we're looking at how do we increase clean cook stove adoption amongst Haitian street vendors. But we couldn't go to Haiti, so we couldn't see how do they cook, how do they interact with their customers, how do they use their stove. So what we did is we actually, before the interviews, gave them photo prompts. So we asked them questions like, what does it look like to set up your shop? what does it look like to buy supplies? And they took photographs of their day, and then with their, with their mobile phones, and then during the interview, the qualitative interview, they actually talked us through those photos, and then we mapped it across a journey in their day. So we had a loose journey map by the end of the interview. And what was so great about that is we actually got to see life in their eyes, right? It wasn't through our own perspective, but their perspective. And they took some fantastic pictures too. And it was so clear from the photographs that they weren't just vendors to their customers, but they were also like confidants, they were friends. And it was all from just seeing these photographs that were taken. And so that's all in the beginning. And then I think as we move to higher fidelity concept testing, that's when you get the digital prototypes. Like we sometimes do mock ad campaigns to test with users to see like if this product was actually in market, would people buy it? But the whole point being is you can be like scrappy and quick with your testing. You could look at our informal poll that we did at the beginning of this session, and that it's more about the more important thing is to test. And then the last thing I would say in terms of myth is kind of the mindset and attitude. So a lot of what I've seen is oftentimes we come into human-centered design with, these are our solutions, we want to prove that they are correct. And instead, I would encourage you to not necessarily be solution obsessed, but be problem obsessed. So what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And when you become problem obsessed, then the right solution will come into play. So kind of the takeaways is test early and often, use a variety of research methods when you're going about testing to get deep insights, and then to be problem obsessed.
No, great, Nina. Thanks so much on talking us through how to generate insights from customers. Let's go to Maureen now on the application of these insights into companies. So, Maureen, One Out Breath, Sequest Capital, who are they?
Thank you, Ronan. Can you hear me? Okay, so Sequest Capital is a social impact development enterprise that is headquartered in Washington, D.C. It started its operations in 2008, and it seeks to transform the lives of the rural poor by providing them with sustainable energy and clean cooking technologies, thereby improving the lives and well-being of particularly women and children. CQC operates in Latin America, Asia, and sub-Saharan Africa in countries like Zimbabwe, where I come from.
Great, thank you, Maureen. So now your double salvo. So CQC has information from customers that allows you to quantify time savings. Why are you generating these insights, and how are you going to use these insights and build on them?
These insights are important to us so that as an organization, we identify if we are meeting customer needs with regard to effectively minimizing cooking time throughout the total cooking process. So from sourcing the energy to preparing food and to timelessly providing a meal. The same insights help us assess whether we're making positive or negative impacts with regard to clean cooking interventions, especially on time savings. As I mentioned earlier, CQC seeks to promote the well-being of women and children. So it's important that the interventions we provide result in massive time savings so that women can dedicate their time to economic activities that help their families, their children, thereby contributing to economic growth and development. We all know when we want to develop a nation, we need to empower women and emancipate them as well. The same information helps us to design products and services so that meet customer needs. So we embed all those insights and provide products and services that meet the specific needs of the customer. So CQC is consumer-centric. Moving on to the next question. So with this information, we compare the various consumer groups that we are servicing, wanting to find out if they require the same clean cooking technologies or different solutions. So those that require same interventions, we provide a similar product, and then we provide a different product for a different market. And we've been doing a lot of trials, massive trials, to enhance, to embed these insights. For example, initially we distributed one stove. Now we are distributing a 2-cook stove due to the needs or embedding the insights of consumers from the data that we had researched. We are also have added a stove, a pot holder, to enable our consumers to efficiently and effectively use the improved cook stove. So there are massive trials that are underway, and our products are being launched for the various consumers to meet their specific and articulated needs. And lastly, this information helps us to continuously research and improve the product so that we are abreast of consumer satisfaction or dissatisfaction, and also maintain our relevance as an organization.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Kat, let's go to you and dig a little bit deeper into customers and the insights that they're bringing to us in clean cooking. One breath, and I'll count it this time. 60 decibels, who are they?
I can do that easily. We are an impact measurement and customer insights organization. I'm done.
Very good, thank you. And the question's for you, Kat. So what do you see driving customers to become promoters of a company? And then the flip side of that, what are we missing? What are we not doing so well?
Yep, great question. I'll add a bit of context. So part of this is based on the work we have just done with Clean Cooking Alliance, so 12 ventures, part of the Catalyst program. But over across the energy sector, we've interviewed 55,000 customers across, I think it's 35 countries and 120 companies. So from this, being able to kind of really pull out what we're learning across different business models, geographies, and different impact themes. And so across the clean cooking sector, we see that, actually this is a question, you did great with questions here. Who knows what the Net Promoter Score is? Is that a familiar? Okay, sprinkling. So you almost certainly will have been asked this question. It's a question around customer satisfaction and loyalty. And it's a really nice way of kind of gauging temperature of your customers or your end users. And for this is where the promoter piece, the question that Ronan's just asked, is about. So people rating their likelihood to recommend a product or service to friends or family very highly, they'd be promoters. And so these are the guys that we can learn a lot from. What do they love? What do they benefit from? What do they value about their products and services? There's also a lot to learn from the people who are the detractors, those who don't love them so much. But to that question, the promoters, those that are loving these clean cooking products, talk about themselves. They talk about being able to cook faster, being able to save energy, the products being affordable, reducing smoke emissions in the household, and the products being safe and easy to use. So this is from their own words what they most value about it. And this is a lot of what we do, which is enabling end users themselves to define impact, to tell us what they value most about being able to use these cooking products and services. And in a really nice echo from that, when people talk about the impact that these cook stoves or these cooking services have on their lives, and 84% of customers said their lives had improved because of this product or service, this cook stove. They talked about time savings. They talked about reduced expenses and improved savings. They talked about ease of cooking and improved cleanliness, so the house felt cleaner and free from smoke. So that's where the sector is doing really well. There are a few areas just like all of us experience some challenges, and that really is shaped by challenges, by customer issues. So nearly a third of customers that we talk to, and they're just a random selection of end users of companies, have experienced a challenge using their new cooking product, their cook stove. And that's really important from both an impact point of view. You can't realize the full benefits of a cook stove if you can't use it to full effect, but also may have business impacts because you probably aren't going to tell your friends and family, you should go and buy this if it's not really working for you. In fact, you might be telling them not to buy it, so it's quite important from that point of view. And it's really linked, unsurprisingly, to that Net Promoter Score, that customer satisfaction I talked about, with that being a -19 if you have an unresolved challenge, compared to a 53, positive 53, if you've never experienced a challenge. And so what people are talking about, they're talking about parts breaking or not working, poor product quality overall, poor customer service, and difficulty lighting their stove. That might be specific to some products, of course. And I think what's most important, kind of the takeaway, what we see is there are 3 types of challenges, and they're all addressed quite different ways. So the first is an actual technical fault, and that's, you might need to go back to the design table and work out what's going on there. The second is around mismatched expectations, and that requires really a review of sales and marketing materials and pitches, and making sure that, you know, a customer isn't saying, well, it only, you know, works for 5 hours and it's only supposed to work for 5 hours, but just making sure that there is honest and accurate marketing. And then the third is around misuse, and often not deliberate, but often can be addressed through guidance, materials, installation, whatever it might be, to enable those end users to really get the most out of their cook stove or their cooking service. So I will stop there.
Okay, thanks so much, Kat. Let's move to one of the companies who has taken a lean data survey as part of that package of work. So Catherine Schroff, one out breath on who Mwangaza Light is.
Mwangaza Light is a social enterprise providing clean cooking and solar solutions to rural households, schools, and churches in Kenya. That was the brief one.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Let's hear from you a bit more, Catherine, about where challenges come up to that kind of are a barrier to being customer-centric. First of all, yeah, what actions has the work from 60 Decibels prompted you to pursue and change? And as a distributor, to what extent do you feel you're always able to make decisions purely on the basis of what you know your customers want?
Thank you. So 60 Decibel did a customer survey last year, and it gave us a lot of new insights. On the very positive side, we learned that 98% of our customers got their first cook stove from us. It means that we can, with confidence, say that we are reaching unserved markets. And we are reaching unserved markets because we have developed a business model where we work together with churches and faith-based organizations, and we build last-mile distribution into their infrastructure. As probably everybody knows, churches are key social institutions in East Africa. We work particularly in Kenya. And with the churches, we are working with the most trusted leaders. We are working with infrastructure that reaches from the national to the village. And we are actually dealing with places where people go for development. So people go to church on Sunday because they want to hear the word of God, but they also want to hear what is new, what should we do. So we are able to reach people with messages and changing behavior. And we are also able to use that infrastructure to actually give them access to products. From the survey, we also learned that we had a very high Net Promoter Score. It was at 80. And we attribute this to the fact that people actually like products that they get from the church. So it's seen as a church product. So it's something that is good, something that is right. And they like also promoting it to others because we work with churches in a model we call green churches. and it aims at growing environmental stewardship with the church. So the church actually takes on the biggest crisis that we have today, namely climate change. And so the leaders are talking about climate change, energy poverty, as part of also talking about women empowerment. And so other leaders sort of lower down in the organizational levels are also very happy to take it on. So from our perspective, we are putting identity into changing to clean cooking. So clean cooking is not just something you do to make your cooking easier. You do it because it becomes part of who you are as a person. Are you someone who is taking care of creation? That would be the discourse of the church.
Thanks so much. And let's bring it to the investor side of the house now. So it's it.
So
Oh, and you want to answer the, yeah.
I just wanted to say that some of the 3 things that I would like to highlight that we have also learned is that a lot of our customers, they actually don't know they have a problem. When we start talking with them about that, how much time they are spending on collecting firewood or cooking, they realize that they have a problem. But I would like to emphasize that in a country like Kenya, where we have had burn operating for very many years, we've had lots of programs, there's still a lot of ignorance or not knowing about the problems of clean cooking. So the need for awareness raising, I think, is something we should not overlook, even in a country like Kenya. I would also like to say that it's important that we embed cooking into a broader perspective of environment, but also in food security. I'm asked very often, you help me to cook better and cook cheaper, but I have no food. So what am I going to put in the pot? And I think we need to embrace those problems by moving beyond providing technology to also providing solutions, by planting trees for cooking fuel for those who are using biomass. We need to look also more into the food that goes in the pot. The last thing I would like to say is that as a distributor, we try to really serve the customer. And in Kenya, we have a lot of stove stacking. It means that our customers, they want to cook different food on different stoves using different cooking fuels. When we are working with carbon programs, the carbon credit programs, we are to give one stove to one household, and then they will use that stove to cook everything. That puts me in a bit of a tricky situation, because how do I serve a customer who wants to use different stoves to cook different foods, and a program that wants me to only provide one stove? And I know that this can be seen a little bit provoking, but I think it is a discussion that we should have about how can we provide customers with solutions that are good for their cooking. And maybe we can start looking at usage and not so much on the ownership of cook stoves.
Great point. Thank you, Catherine. Coming to the investor side of things, Shweta, and you're going to expand a little bit on what you're looking for in terms of customer-centric companies. But first, a tweet on Shell Foundation, who they are.
Yes. Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Awesome. It's always intimidating going at the end, but I'll try. So Shell Foundation is a grant-based investor, and we are focused on creating and scaling businesses that are addressing the challenge of SDG 7 through our investments. We're basically able to take sort of the risky early stage investment risk with companies, enabling them to be able to sort of get commercial capital. So looking at a sort of sustainable model.
Thanks, Shweta. Right, 2 questions for you. When you're looking at potential investees, how do you determine that they have a strong customer focus in their business model? Why is this especially important with new and innovative technologies?
So I think it's important that I start with sharing that Shell Foundation has a fairly unique position in the market, in that we don't expect financial return. So we are grant-based investors without an expectation of return, which actually makes us hyper-focused and actually very bullish on the customer focus. So that's actually a little bit different from, classic investors. But just going back to your question in terms of what we look for, I think there are some very obvious tell signs, right? So where is the company based? Where is the entrepreneur based? Is it close to the customer or far? What are they looking for when they're hiring their leadership team? What types of skills and experience are valuable to them? Are they the kind of people who understand the customer, or is it some other type of expertise that is more important? And then, one of the early sort of signs are, how do they pitch the company? What was the origin of the solution and the idea? And that gives you quite a lot of flavor in terms of why the company exists. And for us, I think, digging in a little bit deeper into the motivations of the entrepreneur is actually quite valuable. Just in terms of how do they think of the opportunity? What's driving the opportunity? Is it the capital providers, whether that is the investors or now the carbon market or co-benefit? And there's a lot of very interesting and good capital out there, but what's really driving them? Is it the capital or is it the customer? And has the entrepreneur invested their own time in trying to understand the narrative that is sort of giving them a better understanding of what the customer needs are? I think these are all really important from a due diligence perspective, just in terms of trying to understand what the key motivations of the company are. Also, I think this is an important one, which is, even at the due diligence stage, when the narrative of the company is being shared to an investor, how do they tell their story in terms of what is the problem that their solution has already solved, and what are the problems that are still yet to be solved? Do they know those two areas equally enough just to be able to understand whether that customer focus is entrenched in their business plans and in what they are seeking from a product development point of view, business model, partnerships, etc. And I think this is particularly, I think just clean cooking as a topic is so customer centric, just because cooking profiles in various different contexts vary so much that you really can't, it's impossible to have one size fit all. So if you understand, as a company, if you understand your customer, then you know what to do with your product, you know what to do with your business model, you know what to do with different partnerships, because all of that will vary depending on how the customer and what the customer requirements are. I think it's particularly more so in clean cooking companies than maybe some other energy access solutions. And the other thing is because of the low income focus of our companies, we think that from a company's point of view, the customer obsession reflects in them understanding the financial or economic situation of a customer. So that's very fundamental, because it's not about products and features and functionality only. It's about how will it actually work at a household level, at an economic household level, because these are relatively volatile and quite sensitive economic situations that you are dealing with that type of customer. And for us at SF, we think economic success is manifested in net income uplift, which is basically increase in either revenues or reducing cost and time savings. And just last point on, when we're thinking about the incentives, I think, as capital providers, whether that is, different kinds of results-based financing, I think we just have to be extra careful in ensuring that the way we are designing the incentives of the capital actually keep the customer interest in as central as we want the entrepreneur to, so that there's no distraction. So we are all essentially driving through our capital the entrepreneur to actually look at the opportunity quite similarly. Sorry, I just on the technology. I think that on new and innovative technologies, it's we find that it's quite easy for technology developers to get carried away with the new features and the functionalities of the product, and then after retrospectively sort of do the product market fit. So a lot of time, money, and effort is actually spent if you don't have the customer interest sort of like central. So we think that for new and innovative technologies, it's even more important when you're trying to bring behavior change. So as an example, electric cooking is sort of like a new way to cook. And we think that based on our learnings with our investees, what customers value in terms of switching from charcoal biomass to electric cooking is the time saving and the reduction in cost of cooking, which is why we are seeing an increase in demand of electric pressure cookers, for example. And what customers are actually doing with electric pressure cookers because of the time saving is that they're also doubling up as micro enterprises and selling foods, for example. So, with one of our investees in Nairobi, we actually saw that the women who were traditionally just homemakers are now actually using their electric pressure cookers to cook lentil or dengu, which is an East African cuisine, in larger batches and actually sort of increasing their income and selling. And their demand now is to actually have a bigger pot. So the 6-liter pot isn't sufficient for them to cook and sell. They want bigger pots. So these are interesting insights, but these are only learned when you kind of understand like how your new and innovative technology actually feeds into the lives of the end customer. Yeah, and just lastly, I think it's sort of goes beyond the due diligence stage in terms of the customer focus. And here I think the responsibility lies both on the entrepreneur as well as the investor. And one of the things that we've learned with our work is you can only keep the customer centrality true if you actually understand from a very measurable perspective the impact that you're creating from on your customer, because then you can very clearly articulate the value proposition to your customer because you know how you're changing their life. For example, in one of our projects, we saw that 80% of the customers who were using pay-as-you-go LPG, which was the project that we were supporting, wanted the pay-as-you-go LPG option when they were accessing LPG. And just in terms of the switching, they were saving a full day of time a week, and also 59% of them reported that they saved money. So I think just having this measurable understanding of what you're doing with your customer just gives you a perspective of where you should invest your capital as an entrepreneur and investor.
No, thank you, Shweta. All right, well, I want to build on the kind of the customer interaction that Nina started and Kat build on with some Q&A. So please, if you have any questions, let's keep the questions quick and flowing, and we'd love to hear from you. Who has a question? Can we get a mic to the back, please? This is all giving you some valuable thinking time for questions.
Krista Roth, Cleaner Cooking Coalition. I'm delighted to hear so many voices hinging around the acceptance and the adoption and the user-centered thinking. I have a question to not only you on the panel, but also the people in the room. We have spent a decade on defining tiers of performance to rate cook stoves. Can we do the same for adoption, for the users? Because our colleague Danny Wilson coined that term, impact is performance times adoption, like the IPA formula. I would actually like to add the scale to it as well. So if we're looking at impact, as being a mathematical equation and we have different factors in there, we know that if one factor is very low, the whole product is going to be low. So if we're only focusing on performance and we forget the users, we are not having any impact, because a stove that is not used has exactly zero impact, even if it has got the potential to save 50% of the fuel. Stoves don't do anything. The users do things with those stoves, but we are only measuring stoves on performance tiers. This, to my understanding, is completely missing the boat. And if we want to steer that cleaner cooking sector towards impact, we need to do this, what you have just said on the panel, include the users. How can we operationalize user adoption as well in different categories, be it convenience, ease of use, robustness, time saving, whatsoever, in similar tiers or similar categories, so that we can also divert funding maybe to stoves that are less performing but are likely to be distributed and adopted at scale, because our impact is going to be higher.
So it's an interesting observation. I guess the question you're asking is, should we have a tiering system for customer adoption?
Okay, I think you heard me, but the users plays a central role in creating impact. And if you're not sort of like at least taking this into the whole equation, we're missing the boat. So the question is, I don't have a solution, otherwise I would have done it already, but I'm asking, first of all, each and every also investor or funder of technologies to ask that question. Are the users going to adopt this? How? What is it actually that they like? And therefore we have to use all these user-centered design approaches to get the feedback from the customers. But my question is a level higher. How can we sort of like capture this into a number or into a rating perspective? It can be tiers or it cannot be tiers. Ideas? It exists.
The World Bank created this. It's called a multi-tier framework. It has different segments and it has tiers.
That's the multi-tier framework is the closest to getting this, but I think we're still also missing out some categories that are more user-centered. And to be honest, can I ask the question, who has worked with the multi-tier framework? Hands up. Okay, I think that answers the question, but we should be doing this and we should be using the tools that are there and maybe working on those tools. As I say, it took 10 years to come up with the ISO standard protocols and how to rate cook stoves, to agree on this. Maybe we take another 10 years to come up with something better.
Yeah, I can share, it doesn't directly answer it, but could share a few insights that might be helpful. And I think one of the things we're doing is building these indexes, I think a little like you're saying, which captures kind of customer impact profile even. So are we serving previously unreached populations? Because if you're just selling a cook stove to someone who previously owned one, unless that one's broken, then you're also having less impact. So I think there is more and more work and consideration being done around what are those key indicators or those key kind of themes of impact, and how do we understand how they connect to each other, possibly to get one number, or more importantly to get better understanding of the usage patterns and behaviors in the home. In case it's helpful to share just some insights from the work we did to these types of questions are certainly part of how we're understanding customers' experience and the impact these cook stoves might create. 60% of the people we talked to were stove stacking. They were using other stoves, normally only an additional one. And I think one of the most important parts is, and I'm sure Katherine's working on this and many others, what determined which stove they chose to use was based on meal type, fuel availability, and cost. And so, to Katherine's point around carbon financing, well, there's 40% of people, I suppose, who are only using one stove, so you can collect the finance on those guys. But I think what's my feeling is we could, as a sector, do a better job of understanding customer needs and designing and meeting those, and then layer on the way of measuring and understanding impact and creating indexes and frameworks and tiers. But to that point that only I was one of them, 3 people put their hand up to say who's using the multi-tier framework. So yeah, just sharing some insights around it, and I think there are definitely ways to do it, but I think we need a better understanding around customers perhaps first before trying to develop that. But I'm happy to be disagreed with.
Hi, Paul Means with Burn Design Lab. So I think this is such a challenge, I think, and but there's 2 sides to it as I see it. One is really trying to understand what the customer wants, but the other is trying to understand the customer, as in who that customer is, when you're looking at a country of 30 million people and they're spread out geographically and economically, et cetera, family size. So do you have ideas or their methodologies for coming up with statistically relevant data given the size and complexity of the customer base? Is that representative? Does that really answer the question? But how many people do we need to talk to really understand what the majority of the people would like to see?
Okay, for the sample to be representative, I'll give, for example, in Zimbabwe, we make sure that we conduct audits every month, sampling a few beneficiaries who've received our cook stove and gauging some insights from them. We try and at least visit a minimum of 100 households per month, and try not to use the same sample over and over again, so that we can get data on specific customer needs, so that we can tailor make specific solutions that will suit our customers.
I can answer with really geeky numbers if it's helpful. I mean, this is what we do day in, day out. If your population size is anything, I think, from 5,000 to 50 million, for a statistically robust sample where you're talking about 90% confidence level and 5% confidence interval, so this is very geeky for many of you, you need a sample of 273. So obviously you might want to up that in terms of your robustness, but actually often, if that is purely representative, so totally random sample, the sample sizes that you need aren't enormous to be able to get a sense of what's really happening for that customer base or that population base or whoever it might be.
As part of the Consumer Insights Lab, we're launching a new email address, which if you have any questions, comments like that, you can email, and we can send you literature that we have. I will find the address in my book and plug it at the end to share. We have 2 questions at the back. Your hand was up first, sir, so we'll go to you, then to your colleague there, and then I think, Lewis, did you have a question? And we had a question here, so we'll go, yeah. So 4 more questions.
All right, thanks. Moses Samoni, Up Energy. The lady from Sequest Capital mentioned a very important point, where she mentioned that based on research, they're going back to households and distributing another stove. I don't know if I got it correct, or selling another stove to the household. Looking at gold standard, where does this leave the question of stove stacking?
So just to repeat the question again, was it stove stacking?
So she mentioned that based on research that they're doing, they're able to go back to households and sell another stove. I don't know if if I got her correctly. My concern though is that based on gold standard, where does this leave the question of stove stacking?
Where do you sit on the question of stove stacking?
Oh, okay. Just to clarify, stove stacking is happening. Some beneficiaries end up accepting another stove. Maybe there's an extra benefit attached to the stove. But in most cases, they tend to choose one stove over the other. But it is happening, and I think we're also trying to develop or to try and find insights on the best way to innovate products that meet consumer needs. And I think this will in turn resolve the issue of stove stacking, because if the improved cook stove technology you're providing to the consumer meets their specific needs, then there's no reason for them to stove stack.
Thank you. My question is directed for the Kenyan. Yes. I would like to know how are realized the awareness in the churches. Do you do the demonstrations, or is the churches, members of churches, go to spread the information in the communities?
Did you get that, Catherine? It's a question about... Yeah.
No, I think it's working now. Thank you. So in the Green Churches program, what we do is we start at the top. So we start with the Archbishop and his team and get their buy-in for the church to go green, in the sense of starting to preach more about care of creation, so to start making it part of sermons, make it part of teachings, make it part of encouragement, part of youth group work, women structures. For example, in some churches you have women who come together to cook. They will use an improved cook stove and they will talk about cooking. We train a lot of agents amongst the Christians. So we work with the clergy, we train the clergy, then we develop and grow agents amongst the Christians, and they are the ones who promote to other Christians. So we try as much as possible to actually be an enabler, a facilitator, more than do the actual demo. And I would say that where we have managed very well is with a church where we have also co-branded a cook stove. So with their name on the cook stove, they actually literally take it out of my hand and say, it's ours, it's working, just go get it. So to grow that ownership, and where it has the ideology, making that part of it, that's also how we believe we can actually grow a movement that is beyond the clean energy transition as such.
Guys, you've put your hands up now, and we are at time. So I'm sorry, unless it's like a burning quick question that you want to, oh, even more. Well, please, yeah, final question to the lady.
Thank you very much. Mine is not a question, but I'm just adding up to the Green Church. In Ghana, we will not call it the Green Church, but we will call it Catch Them Young. In Ghana, if you come to our school curriculum, from basic 7 to 10, we have captured the clean cooking idea in the curriculum. So you are calling it the Green Church, but Ghana is Catch Them Young. So in the curriculum, they are taught what clean cooking is.
I didn't get the last question. Sorry, what?
No, I'm saying that in the curriculum of Ghana, from basic 7 to 10, we have the clean cooking idea in the curriculum. So the pupils are taught in school. So they learn what clean cooking is. And when they go to their various homes, they impact the knowledge to their parents, their friends, their community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I think this is a good time to plug the email address, given the quick show of hands there's at least 10 unanswered questions or comments in the audience. So userinsights@cleancooking.org. That's userinsights with an S on the end at cleancooking.org. Please do post your question in there, and we will certainly take a look at it, take a look at your comments as well, and look forward to answering any questions that come into that inbox. To conclude, please join me in thanking this amazing panel and the generosity of the insights that they shared with us today. And thank you.
And one quick house cleaning item on scheduling, the updated schedule. We're slightly behind. We're going to take a 5-minute break now if the session is just ended, and then your next session will start 5 minutes after now. After that, the next session will be 1 hour, and there will be another 5-minute break, I think. And then the reception will start at 6 p.m. in the garden area of the Kempinski, just outside the lobby, in the garden area from 6 to 8 p.m.